Honor now to recognize the sponsor of this legislation, a combat veteran herself, a pilot of the A-10 Warthog, 2nd District of Arizona, for 5 minutes. Ms. McSally.
And the gentlewoman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in wholehearted support of H.R. 4336, the WASP Arlington Internment Restoration Act. This is the right thing to do, and I want to thank the chairman for quickly moving this through your committee and to the floor, Chairman Thornberry for signing off on it, so that we could do the right thing to allow these amazing women and these pioneers who went before us, who opened the door for so many of us women in the military to serve, that they could be laid to rest in the place where we honor, is a place of honor and a place of rest for the most hallowed, the most amazing men and women who have served and gone before us. The fact that these women were denied this right is unconscionable and, quite frankly, was infuriating when we heard about it. Let me tell you a little bit about the WASPs. The WASPs, during World War II, raised their right hand and said, I'll support. We needed pilots. We needed all people to be able to, men and women, to be able to do whatever it took for the war effort. So these women went through training. 1,074 of them went through training. An additional 28 actually already had flying experience and were directly brought in. So it was actually 1,102. It said, I'm going to be a pilot. I'm going to support the effort. General Hap Arnold, at the time, the head of the Army Air Corps, had intended that they be militarized. They went through military training. They marched. They slept in barracks. They went through everything that the men alongside them did. And the intent was to be militarized. The only reason they weren't militarized was because of hang-ups and sexism about the role of women in the military back then. Heaven forbid we have women military pilots. We couldn't handle it back then. And so these women served anyway. They flew 60 million miles, ferrying airplanes all over the theaters. They towed targets for the ground gunners to practice shooting at targets. They trained male pilots to then head off to the war effort. 58 of them perished in training in the line of duty. Yet they still were in this quasi-civilian military status. No veterans benefit. They were passing the hat around to support getting their bodies back to their family. No recognition at the time, but they still served. At the end of the war, they were discharged and told to go home. The men needed the cockpits. And it wasn't until 1977 that this Congress passed a law finally giving them veterans' rights so that they would be treated as veterans. They were, after the fact, given honorable discharges. They were given the medals that they deserved at the time. We thought that this was finally over. The fight was over, that they would be recognized for all that they deserved and they'd be able to be laid to rest with full military honors. But a bureaucratic, technocratic glitch created another door that shut to them. And this is an extraordinary example, by the way, of somebody taking action to bring a wrong to our attention and for us to be able to make it right. And I want to highlight Elaine Harmon, who passed away as one of the WASPs. She passed away last year. I met with her family. I read her handwritten will. She wanted to have her ashes in Arlington. She requested it. And we thought that they were allowed. So the family put in the request, and it wasn't until they got the letter back saying denied. WASPs are not allowed in Arlington. That they didn't just accept that no. In the legacy of Elaine Harmon, and by the way, these women were feisty, they were strong, they were not going to take no for an answer. And in that spirit, her children and her granddaughter, and Erin Millen is with us in the gallery today, said, we're not going to take no for an answer. We're going to raise awareness on this, and we're going to get my grandmother and the WASPs the rights that they deserve. So I first heard about this through the media in early January. We sprung into action, working with our colleague, Susan Davis, getting sponsors. We're over 190 right now. This has been fast-tracked through the committee in order to allow them to be laid to rest there. Elaine Harmon's ashes are sitting on a shelf in her granddaughter's closet. We need to make this right as quickly as possible. But let me just say, Mr. Chairman, this isn't just about the pioneers that we read about in history books. These were personal mentors to me, these WASPs. When I first went through combat training, we didn't really have any women we could look up to, and these amazing women came alongside me as wing women to encourage me, to mentor me. I had 3 of them sitting in my front row at my change of command ceremony when I took over command of an A-10 squadron. Dawn Seymour, Ruth Helm, and Eleanor Gunderson, and they personally supported and encouraged me along the way. It's because of their service that the doors were opened for those of us in the military to serve, and it's ridiculous that Arlington would close the gates to them at the very time that we're opening up all positions to women in the military. This is the right thing to do. I'd urge all my colleagues to support this legislation, especially in Women's History Month. The least we could do is allow the WASPs to be laid to rest in Arlington and Elaine Harmon as quickly as possible. Let's get this passed today. Let's get it through the Senate and on the President's desk so that she can be laid to rest, and the rest remaining that choose to have their ashes in Arlington, this is their right. The only reason they were not active duty at the time was because of sexism. It's time for us to shut this remaining door and give them this final resting place. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the rest of my time.
The gentleman